With this new year where so many resolutions are made and then broken, we would be wise to remember what our lives were like this past decade. For some, each ensuing year brought prosperity and good health, but for millions the world over remain in desolation, hoping that things will be better next year. And they never are. The dawning of a new decade is at hand. Many would like to think that 2020 and beyond would bring a sense of fulfillment in their everyday lives. Still, for millions the world over, the past 10 years only continued their misery and suffering. The powers that be have only entrenched their tight grip on the reins of power. It is no more evident than right here in the United States. From the Obama years through the first 4 years of Trump, the everyday lives for too many Americans have only continued to languish, desperately awaiting a time when things really change. The prospect of the 2020 presidential election, where so many hopes and dreams hang in the balance that positive change could really come to fruition. Then again, there are concerning questions about the state of our democracy and our political process that have been answered to realize that change is really possible. Has the oligarchy rule of government become so entrenched that no matter the public's outcry, nothing changes? Has our society become so delusional in accepting whatever comes out of Washington? When we have had opportunities to augment change for the betterment of all, we have failed. Remember the Occupy Wall Street a few years back? That is just one instance where the public could have made our government make the changes to serve the people. But, sad to say, we failed to capitalize on the urgency of the day. And, like practically everything else that started out with good intentions, only to wither and die because we couldn't galvanize the mass support that was and is needed to effect the changes we so desperately need. Thinking back to 2008, with the last days of the Bush administration and the first days of the Obama presidency, the long arm of obtrusive government once again raised its ugly head when it chose to ignore the public's outcry when they insisted on bailing out the same financial institutions that started the financial disaster that sent millions of Americans into a deep recession. What Obama did only further entrenched the oligarchy rule that is continuing today. What we are experiencing today is quite the contrary to what the press and this administration keep reminding us. That is, ever since the Obama years, millions all around the country have been going through progressively worse downturns of their economic and financial condition. Has our society become so delusional in accepting this new norm of our everyday lives? Are we so accustomed to the facts that there isn't anything we can and should do to change our present situation? Just think for a moment of all the things we should and could have done to bring accountability of government to all the American public. Who is really to blame for a government that has run away from serving the public's will? The hard truth is us, we the American voting public. We have done this through the years by entrusting our public servants to act with the best interests of all Americans. We have, through complacency, ignorance, and apathy, which has allowed the government of the United States to evolve to where it is today. We have to remind ourselves that 2020 is the year we really can bring the changes needed. There are a few elected officials that still cling to the ideals of our democratic process. 2 of which are currently presidential candidates. They have already galvanized massive public support to bring the reforms that are so desperately needed to improve millions of American everyday lives. The biggest hurdle in accomplishing what really needs to be done is the existing power base that continues its tight grip of their power to control the media and elections. In other words, to maintain the status quo. What we should have done years ago with the Occupy Wall Street movement is that no matter how many attempts are made to sabotage primaries, and even the general election by the power the elites, the voices of the people will trump out Trump and end the oligarchy rule that has infested and infected the democratic process of the United States. Only through a united effort can the American public succeed in returning our birthright democratic process that our founding fathers entrusted to the American public.